Hey, welcome to Sparks. I'm Bob McNamara. Just trying to get a little bit of a core workout in here. Had a bout with COVID and trying to get my strength back. So, and your core, as any athlete will tell you, it's really important, right? It protects you. It doesn't matter what sport you play, singing, dancing, acting, weightlifting, football, basketball, doesn't matter, right? You need a strong core. And you need to work it, right? You need to sort of exercise it. That's how you stay in shape. So, but there's another kind of core that I want to talk to you guys about. So let me finish up here and then we'll get right to it. All right? Talk to you in a minute. Hey, welcome to Sparks again. So let me ask you a question. But before I do that, I want to tell you a quick story. There's a guy I know. I've known him about 15 years, maybe 20 years now. His name is Frank. And he's in the publishing business. And I met Frank when a friend of mine introduced me to him because we were going to do some publishing of a textbook. And so I met the guy at a conference, a nice guy, thoughtful, friendly, outgoing. And so he asks me in the course of this meeting in this hotel room, he's like, hey, so Bob, what can I do for you? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, if we're going to work together, I want to do something. Can I get you anything? Can I do anything for you? Can I buy you something? And I'm like, buy me something? Like what? I was totally confused. He said, well, like a bottle of scotch, or I'd take you to dinner or whatever. And he said, well, what can I do for you? And I said, well, Frank, I don't need any of that stuff. You can show me your character. You're going to do that anyways, but you can tell me who you are, right? Tell me what you're about. You're going to show me your character at some point anyways, and I don't really need to do this project. And, if you're going to be one of those guys that I don't think a whole lot of, then maybe we should just sort of shake hands, say, hey, nice to meet you, and go on our own way. But if there is an opportunity for us to work together, and this could be beneficial for everybody, I need to know who you are. I need to know what your character is. And you could tell nobody had ever asked him that question before, right? Because everybody probably had a list of things. Hey, give me a $300 bottle of scotch, or take me to dinner, or buy me tickets to a Madison Square Garden game, or whatever. I was asking him something really, really different, and it was something he couldn't put a price on. And so my question to you, and my question to Frank, is the same one. Has anybody ever asked you what you stood for, or what you believed in? What matters to you? Sometimes we would call these beliefs, right? Or sometimes people call them values or core values. Doesn't matter, right? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? Most people don't do that. They don't think about that. They don't give a whole lot of thought to who they are, or what they believe in, or what they stand for. But the way this is supposed to work is what you believe should guide how you act, right? So if you have a set of beliefs or core values, they should be the things that matter to you the most, like honesty, integrity, and loyalty, and trust, and right, all those things. Duty, a sense of responsibility, and right. And so all of your decisions should be based on what you believe, right? Makes sense? Yeah. So, but most people don't do that, or most people say they believe in some things, but then they really act in the way that they want to. And we get that, right? Okay. But there are some people that really are devout in what they believe, whether it be their religious faith or in other things. And when we meet those people, you know they're different, right? You're like, hey, wait a minute. This person really does believe these things, and this is how they act, and they're consistent in that. They seem like they got a little bit more of an understanding. They seem like they know what they're doing. They seem like they know what's going on, and I kind of want some. They seem happier. I kind of want some of that, right? The fact that we notice it that's different tells us something about how most people don't practice any kind of core beliefs or values. And here's the thing. If you talk to those people, they'll tell you what they believe. They've thought about it. They've made some decisions, and they practice it, right? Just like you practice dribbling and shooting in basketball, or gymnastics moves, or karate moves, or practice scales on your instrument, or right? These people practice what they believe, and they try as best they can to integrate what they believe with what they do, right? So you need to practice these core, just like we were talking about a minute ago. You got to work your core to get strong and stay strong. You need to work your core beliefs to be the kind of person that you want to be. And so why is that important? Well, it's important because this is probably one of the most important things you're ever going to really do, right? You think about who you are. What's your identity? What do you stand for? Who do you want to be? And maybe you're thinking, I don't really care about that stuff, right? Okay. I hear lots of people, middle schoolers especially, talk about, well, everybody makes decisions for me, the parents and the teachers and the grown-ups. They all do. I never get to choose. I never get to make my own choices. Well, here's an example for you. It's probably one of the most important things you could do. Only you get to decide who you're going to be and what you believe in. Wouldn't it be worth it to spend a little time thinking about that? And you get to decide, and you get to decide how much you practice it, and you get to decide to be the kind of person you want to be. I mean, you can't complain that you don't get a choice when one of the most important choices is yours and you don't exercise it, right? So pick. But how do I do this, right? I don't know, what do I believe? What does that mean, right? It's kind of hard to understand. I'm now starting to sound like a pastor, right? Well, when you think about this, it isn't all that hard. Think about the people that you admire and that you respect. What do they seem to have? What do they believe in? Is it honesty? Is it integrity? Is it trustworthiness? Is it loyalty? Is it, right? Some might call the fruits of the Spirit, right, in the Bible. And think about those and start with that. Write them down. Get a whole list and then figure out which of the 3 or 4 matter the most to you, of who you want to be or what you want to stand for, right? And then start with that. And so you might be saying, okay, well, why is that all that important? Yeah, I know it's about identity and all that. Well, here's why it's important. There's 3 things that are likely to happen that if you have this set of core beliefs, that, like your stomach core, it's going to protect you from injury. 3 things. When you're tempted, right? We're all human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to do stuff we shouldn't do. We're not going to always do the right thing. Well, if you have a set of beliefs that you use to guide your life, you're less likely to be tempted in those things, and you're more likely to realize that you need to fix it, and even how, once you do make a mistake. Now, I'm not talking about temptation like, hey, I'm on a diet, so I'm going to go eat ice cream. That's not what I mean. What I mean are real things, important things, like, hey, I'm thinking about cheating on this exam because my grades really suck, and I really need to get good grades, and no one's going to know if I cheat, so should I do it? Or, hey, I found this wallet, and it was full of cash, and all this other stuff that people carry in their wallets, like credit cards and driver's licenses. I probably should turn that into a teacher or to an adult or the police or whatever, but it's full of cash. What if I took the cash out? Nobody's going to know. I could just tell people I found it empty like that, and everybody would believe that. Right? So that's the kind of temptation we're talking about. And there's plenty of stories in the Bible about that, right? The temptation of Adam and Eve when the devil tempted Jesus, and on and on and on and on. There's plenty of stories like that. So having a set of beliefs will protect you from temptation. Having a set of beliefs will protect you when you're faced with a really difficult dilemma. I got to make a decision, and I don't know what to do. Maybe that's already happened to you. How do I decide? Right? What do I do in those situations? Part of knowing what you stand for will kind of help you knowing what to do. Because it may be that there's lots of different ways that you could go in deciding. With temptation, there's usually a right way and a wrong way to handle that. With dilemmas and things like that, it may not be that simple. Right? For all you boys in the group, boys tend to learn, I think, with movie lines. Right? So think about the Captain America Civil War episode where there's the funeral for Peggy Carter, right? In fact, let me show it right here, and you can get what I mean, right? It's her call to Captain America about what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do in this moment? Right, so let me pause for a second and give you that.
Where you can't, Don't. Even if everyone is telling you that something wrong is something right. Even if the whole world is telling you to move, it is your duty to plant yourself like a tree, look them in the eye and say no. You move.
All right, so biblically, the story of Daniel comes to mind when I think about having to make a hard choice, right? And it's a great story, right? So you might want to read that one when you get a chance. But Daniel was this really devout guy, obedient to God, and he was an administrator in King Darius's kingdom, hard worker, dedicated, and he was such a good worker that none of his colleagues could find anything wrong with him, right? They were all jealous of him, and the king really liked him and admired him and what he stood for, and this moment happens when he's like 80 years old, right? And his colleagues sort of conspire and they trick King Darius into saying, hey, you know, this guy prays every day, he prays to God, and so they convince the king to pass a decree that says, hey, you can't pray to anybody else, any other god or any other person besides the king. And if you do that, you're going to get thrown in the lion's den, right? And King Darius is like, well, yeah, that makes sense. And so he passes the decree. And sure enough, Daniel knows about this and says, all right, well, I'm still going to pray to God. I'm going to be obedient to God. And his colleagues say, oh, hey, king, see, look, here's what's happening. You got to throw this guy in the lion's den. And the king didn't want to do it, but he's like, yeah, okay, but it's the rule, it's the law, I made it. So sundown comes, he throws Daniel in the lion's den, and he stays up all night. He can't sleep, he can't eat, he can't drink. And the next morning he runs down to the den and he calls out to Daniel saying, hey, are you okay? And Daniel says, yeah, I'm okay. I prayed and an angel came and closed the mouths of the lions, and because I was innocent and I never did anything to you king, or to God. And sure enough, he's fine, right? But it's because what he believed in, right? And think about the story of Job, another good example of, okay, standing for what you believe in, and all the things that happened in that story. He lost his cattle, he lost his farm, he lost his kids, he lost his wife, he lost sickness and illness, and never cursed out God. Why? Because he absolutely believed in what he was about. And no matter what happened, he was willing to sort of, stick with it. So when you're tempted, when you're faced with a dilemma, also when you're attacked or accused, right? We tend to think of these situations where people get falsely accused as being odd or short or rare, right? But they're not. They happen all the time. Sometimes people are jealous. Sometimes people don't understand, right? But you're going to have that situation happen. What are you going to do? Especially if you didn't do it, and especially if the costs are great to you, right? I've just been accused. I might get arrested. I might lose my job. There might be all kinds of implications for this. And you think biblically about the stories of Joseph, right? Of how many times was he falsely accused? I mean, he was accused by his brothers, who basically, kidnapped him and sold him into slavery and told the dad, hey, he died because they were jealous of his relationship with the dad. And then, he becomes this high-ranking official in Potiphar's kingdom. And then Potiphar's wife hits on him, and he's like, no, this is wrong. I can't do this. And so she turns around and accuses him of sexual assault. He gets thrown in prison. And he's in prison for a long period of time. And while he's in prison, he interprets some other, servant's dreams, and turns out he was right. And so the guy gets released, and Joseph's saying, hey, just remember me. Tell the king what happened, and this really wasn't anything I did. The guy forgets about him, so he's stuck in prison for even longer. There's example after example in the Bible of being falsely accused. So, and it's probably going to happen to you at some point too. And so having a set of core beliefs is really, really critical to sort of help you deal with and overcome all those things that we just talked about, the temptation and the dilemmas and when you're falsely accused or whatever, right? So think about that, right? Think about what you want to be and who you want to be and what you stand for, and then pick a few. Don't pick more than 3 or 4, because you're never going to remember more than that. Pick 3 or 4 that really are central to who you are, and then go practice them. And I'll bet that when you start practicing them, you'll start feeling better about yourself. People will start to notice a difference in you, and you'll start liking it. And it becomes easier, just like doing more core work, right? You're going to get easier, you're able to do core, do planks for a longer period of time because you're in shape. The more you practice what you believe, right? I said this in one of the last videos. You become good at what you practice. If you practice being, these are my core beliefs, this is what I'm about, this is who I am, and my behavior reflects that, my guess is you're going to find you're going to like it a lot more, right? So go wrap your head around that. Let's talk again soon.